A huge and potentially historic week in Washington. While the rest of the country prepares for the holiday, Republicans are hoping to muscle through that massive tax bill.
The president coming before cameras over the weekend to make the case that the bill will be a, quote, Christmas present for the middle class. But this morning, he's also dealing with a flurry of headlines about the Russia probe.
Special counsel Robert Mueller has obtained thousands of emails from senior Trump officials who took part in the transition between the campaign and the administration. George is standing by with analysis, but let's start here with ABC's David Wright, who's right there at the White House. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan and Paula. This is a crucial week here at the White House, counting it down to the holidays and gearing up for major developments on two fronts. The president, of course, hoping to sign that big tax reform bill into law by week's end. Meanwhile, his legal team is getting set for a rare face-to-face sit-down with the special counsel. And then, this morning, a new line of attack. Today, the Trump transition team is accusing the special counsel of illegally obtaining tens of thousands of private emails from the president's inner circle. This 7-page letter sent last night to key Senate and House committee leaders by a lawyer for the transition is the latest effort to challenge Robert Mueller's investigation.
They're spending millions and millions of dollars. There is absolutely no collusion. I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. Everybody knows it.
The president himself has blasted that investigation as a witch hunt, questioned the objectivity of some of its investigators, and even lambasted the FBI itself. Its reputation in tatters, worst in history, he said in one recent tweet. Now the new letter raises concerns about career staffers in the agency that offers office supplies and other bureaucratic support services to the federal government, accusing them of breaking the law by handing over to the special counsel emails, laptops, cell phones, and other materials associated with top members of the presidential transition team. The materials produced included materials protected by the attorney-client privilege. The letter also accuses the staffers of circumventing the department's general counsel, who was hospitalized and incapacitated at the time. Some Democrats have expressed concern the president may be looking for a pretext to fire Bob Mueller.
Rumor on the Hill when I left yesterday was that the president was going to make a significant speech at the end of next week, and on December 22nd, when we are out of D.C., he was going to fire Robert Mueller.
The White House insists the president has no such plans and remains fully cooperative with the special counsel. Now, the special counsel's office declined to comment to ABC News, and the GSA did not return phone calls and emails. But this letter certainly ratchets up the political tension ahead of that rare sit-down between the president's lawyers and special counsel Robert Mueller. Meanwhile, the president is also bracing for some pushback on the tax reform bill, saying that Democrats are trying to sabotage this thing with sound bites, but Republicans insist they have the votes needed to pass it, even without them. Dan and Paula?
David Wright, thank you. David reporting in from the White House this morning. We'll talk taxes in just a moment. Let's start, though, George. We're bringing in George Stephanopoulos, who's going to be hosting this week later this morning. Let's start here with the email story. How consequential do you think this is?
Well, you got to break it down in a couple of different ways. Number one, I don't think there's any evidence that the special counsel did anything wrong here. When you go into the transition, you sign an agreement saying you know that your emails and other communications are going to be monitored, and you have no expectation of privacy there. And in fact, the special counsel has told other news outlets that they did everything in accordance with proper procedures. So that's number one. Number two, though, these are tens of thousands of emails, and according to that letter that the lawyer for the Trump transition sent, the transition only discovered this on December 12th or 13th of this year. In other words, this week. That means that most of the interviews with transition officials, and there's a lot of at play during the transition communications about contacts with Russia and other things, but most of the interviews would have taken place without the knowledge that the special counsel had these emails, which may suggest why the Trump transition is so worried about this. Did people give answers that could be contradicted by those emails? That's one of the big questions coming out of this story.
And the other big news is the possible passing of the tax bill. We want you to take a listen to what the president said at the White House yesterday.
This is going to be one of the great Christmas gifts to middle-income people.
Okay, a great Christmas gift to middle-income people. Is that true? And what kind of political impact do you
I think it kind of depends on where you live, how many kids you have. Broadly, generally, most middle-class people in most of the country will get some kind of a tax cut, with a couple of caveats. It could go down, or you could even see your taxes raised if you live in a high tax state like New York, New Jersey, where the deduction for state and local taxes has been eliminated. Number two, these personal income tax reductions actually expire after 2025, so people's taxes are going to go up over time once those tax cuts expire, even though the corporate tax cuts are permanent.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in just about 8 years. George, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thanks,
we know
guys.
you have a big show, so we're going to let you go and prepare for that. George is going to go one-on-one with the man counting the votes on the GOP tax plan, Senate Majority Whip John Cornyn.
Plus, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee Chair Chris Van Hollen discusses the race in Alabama, what it means for his party's chances in 2018. That's coming up on This Week right here on ABC. Thanks again, George.